Ji is one of the top stars in T-Biz, but she always has to stay on guard against harassment from her own stepfather. Her mother didn't even care about the truth. She rushed over to give her daughter a slap and scolded her. "How dare you try to seduce my husband?" Ji looked at her mother with total despair. Just a few days ago, right after filming, Ji walked into the parking lot and ran into her stepfather, who was lurking there because he was desperate to get his hands on this famous star. He didn't care that she was his wife's daughter. He rushed over to harass her and even injected her with a sedative. Ji fought back as hard as she could, used a stun gun to escape his men, and then quickly drove away. While escaping, her head started spinning. Right after calling her manager for help, Ji accidentally hit a girl crossing the road. At that moment, the girl's phone was still on a call, and the person on the other end was her fiancé. He is one of the most famous lawyers in Thailand. Hearing strange noises from the phone, he felt that something bad had happened to his fiancé. As soon as he hung up, he rushed to the scene. By then, Ji had passed out at the accident site because of the drugs. The fiancé was shocked to hear that his fiancée had been rushed to the hospital in critical condition. He hurried there, but the doctor gave him some heartbreaking news. His fiancée had passed away. The extreme pain made him unable to believe it. Just an hour ago, the woman he loved most was still with him, but now they were separated by life and death. What made him even more frustrated was that the person reported to have caused the accident was a man, and he actually knew this man. It was the star's driver who had a fender bender with him earlier that day. He immediately realized the driver was just a scapegoat. He angrily criticized her but had no proof, so he silently vowed to find evidence to expose the true face of the star, who always uses money to fix everything and make her pay a heavy price. The girl woke up from a nightmare. Because of the drugs, she forgot everything that happened last night. Her name is Ji. She lost her father as a child, and her mother married a wealthy criminal just to change their lives. Ji worked very hard and quickly became the most popular rising star in T-Biz. Because she was so famous, Ji was hated by her colleagues at the same company, and they often tried to stab her in the back. Facing those childish games, Ji didn't really care. Today, Ji had a fashion show to attend, but a jealous colleague intentionally made her late. On the way, she got into a minor accident with a sports car. The owner suspected Ji was driving drunk, so he kept lecturing her about traffic laws. Ji was in a hurry and didn't want to argue, so she gave him some money along with a magazine, told him to check out the person on the cover, and then left, implying she wouldn't run away. The fashion show began. Under the shimmering stage lights, a model wearing a black dress and expensive jewelry became the center of attention. She smugly thought she was the brightest star of the night, but suddenly Ji descended from above on a cable, wearing a pure white dress. Ji looked as beautiful as an angel coming down to earth, making the whole room gasp, and the applause was like thunder. By chance, Ji noticed her stepfather staring at her with lustful eyes, obsessed with Ji's beauty. He turned to order his men to wait in the basement to surround her car. This time, after being drugged by her stepfather, Ji hit and killed lawyer Sathit's fiancé while she was delirious. First, she thought it was just a nightmare. But when she saw the news in the paper, all the memories came rushing back. Ji collapsed in pain, filled with guilt. She wanted to go to the police station to confess, but her mother stopped her. To protect Ji's current status, she threatened her daughter, saying that if she confessed now, not only would the manager and the driver be charged with lying, but even the company would be affected. Ji fell into despair. Just then, Director Yen, the female lead's best friend, came to find her. She wanted Yen to take her to the poor girl's funeral. At the funeral, Ji knelt before the girl's coffin, begging for forgiveness and promising to take care of her elderly mother. This scene was accidentally caught by the fiancé. He became even more certain that this star was the one who caused the accident that killed his fiancé. He angrily kicked Ji out, threw back the money she had given him before, and cursed her out. Immediately, reporters swarmed like a disturbed beehive. He is an honest lawyer, but his fiancé died unfairly, and the killer is still walking free. He is determined to find evidence to get justice for his fiancé. On this side, Ji went to the hotel to find evidence that she had been drugged, but she didn't realize her stepfather was so powerful. He not only destroyed all the security cameras, but also bribed the night shift staff so they wouldn't dare testify. Just then, Sathit arrived at the hotel. He originally planned to look for evidence of Ji's accident, but seeing Ji talking to the staff, he assumed she wanted to bribe them to destroy evidence. Sathit angrily pointed at Ji's face, swearing to find proof to personally put her in jail. That day, the lead actress visited her old teacher. She told him the whole truth about the accident. Ironically, the unlucky girl was also a former student of his. Ji guiltily asked the teacher if she should tell the truth, but he advised her not to act rashly, or things would only get worse. Ji got the girl's home address from the teacher. She planned to visit the mother, but TIW's fiancé was also there. As soon as he saw Ji, Sathit rushed over and forced her to admit her crime, yelling at her not to hope to use money to solve everything. It turned out that while visiting the mother, Sathit was told that Ji's manager had come and given her money to drop the lawsuit. This made Sathit misunderstand Ji even more. The male lead thought Ji wanted to settle everything with money like before, but he didn't know that the manager coming with the money was arranged by Ji's mother on her own. Ji didn't want to deal with Sathit anymore and tried to leave, but right then Sathit pushed her into a pond. He wanted her to taste what death felt like. Luckily, a neighbor was passing by and saved Ji from the pond. She angrily called her manager. That's when the female lead found out her mother had sent the manager with the money. Unable to take it anymore, Ji rushed home to find her mother. But unfortunately, her mother wasn't home. A cruel servant tricked Ji into going to a room on the second floor. When she walked into the room, Ji realized the person waiting for her wasn't her mother, but her stepfather. No one could imagine that such a beautiful and famous star had to live in fear every day. She grabbed a nearby object, hit the creep on the head and finally escaped. As she got downstairs, the servant even tried to stir up trouble between the mother and daughter. With her strong personality, how could Ji stand such an insult? But the servant wouldn't give up. Ji angrily drove away. On the way home, she happened to run into her mother. Ji slammed on the brakes right in front of her mother's car. The daughter told her mother how her scumbag husband had tried to hurt her, but because her mother is so passive, she just looked the other way. When they got home, she asked her husband if he had bullied Ji. He not only admitted it, but also loudly threatened both Ji and her mother. This time, Ji set up a meeting with Sathit at the police station. She intended to tell him the whole truth about the accident, but just as she was about to speak, the driver suddenly called. He begged Ji not to tell the truth, or he would go to jail for lying. Hearing the sound of his young child crying on the phone, Ji didn't want the kid to lose her father, so she had to swallow her words. This action made Sathit explode with anger once again. The two had a big fight and went their separate ways. Sathit couldn't find evidence to arrest Ji, so he went back to the night shift worker, wanting him to testify. However, the worker was afraid of the stepfather's power and didn't dare speak the truth. Feeling helpless, Sathit swallowed his pride and knelt before him. Seeing a man kneeling for his fiancé, the worker felt bad for him. But just as things were going well, Sathit's attempt to gather evidence was discovered by Ji's stepfather. He immediately sent men to teach Sathit a lesson. Sathit was beaten up badly by his goons. He only wanted justice for his fiancé, but he ended up being warned by the evil stepfather and beaten so badly, he had to be hospitalized. Even so, Sathit didn't give up. He was determined to get justice for his fiancé. His mother stopped him. She had already lost a daughter-in-law and couldn't lose her son too. Faced with his mother's tearful plea, Sathit could only agree to stop investigating the accident. Just as he was in deep sorrow, he saw Ji happily singing and dancing. He couldn't take it anymore and choked Ji. Even though he had no way to prove Ji's crime, he wouldn't let her live in peace. To help her brother feel better, his sister Piak invited him to her company's fashion show. The show opened with a lively dance on stage. The lights were shimmering, and everyone was immersed in the performance. To his surprise, the guest performer was Ji. Just as Sathit was about to leave, something went wrong on stage. Ji tripped and fell. Director Chine immediately rushed onto the stage to catch Ji. Watching from the audience immediately flew into a rage because Cheyenne was her husband. Piak ran to the dressing room, and she didn't just yell at Ji but also slapped her husband. Sathit overheard their conversation and thought Ji was seducing his brother-in-law, so he warned Ji in the elevator to stay away from Cheyenne. Unexpectedly, Ji didn't even pay attention to him. Furious, Sathit pushed Ji to the ground. As for Piak, when she got home and found her husband wasn't there, she mistakenly thought he went to take care of Ji. At this point, she and her brother Sathit were on the same side. That day, Piak took Sathit to the company to see their father. Surprisingly, they found a bouquet of flowers in the office sent by Ji. Actually, Ji sent the flowers to thank her boss, but Piak mistakenly thought they were for her husband. She was angry and immediately called Cheyenne, but she couldn't reach him. Just then, Piak heard employees saying the two of them had gone out together, so she misunderstood and thought they were definitely on a date. In the afternoon, while Ji was filming on set, Piak wanted revenge and drove her car straight into the set. Because Piak was an investor and the boss's daughter, Ji just had to put up with it. However, she had no idea this was just the beginning of her days of revenge. This was a scene where the female lead gets attacked by a jealous woman in the middle of the street. To her surprise, the actress co-starring with Ji intentionally acted for real, slapping Ji over and over again. Ji endured it as much as she could. It turned out this actress was set up by the director's wife herself. Cheyenne overheard his wife talking to that actress and realized his wife was playing tricks behind his back, which made him very disappointed. Cheyenne couldn't understand why his sweet and understanding wife had become so scary. That night, Cheyenne went to see Ji to apologize. Actually, he loved his wife very much, but she had changed and wasn't the old Piak anymore. Seeing Cheyenne in pain, Ji comforted him and told him not to worry about it anymore. Even though what Piak did was wrong, at least it proved she loved him a lot. After saying that, Ji helped the drunk Chayen home, but just as they reached the door, they ran into Sathit bringing Piak home. Ji tried to avoid them, but Sathit wouldn't let her go. He immediately chased after her. Misunderstanding that Ji was flirting with Chayen, he insulted her and warned her not to mess with Chayen anymore. Ji felt helpless. She didn't want to explain any further, but Sathit kept following her. She quickly hailed a taxi. At that moment, Sathit was faster and hopped in first, so the two of them had to share the car. On the way, they had another huge argument. To make up with her husband, Piak personally made the sandwiches and Americano coffee that Chayen liked and brought them to the editing room. At first, Chayen wanted to keep the Cold War going, but he didn't want Piak to be sad, so he ate all the sandwiches and let her stay in the editing room with him. However, he made it a condition that Piak had to apologize to Ji for him to forgive her. Piak had no choice but to go to the set to find Ji, but the apology just wouldn't come out. Ji knew exactly what Piak was there for, so she went to the restroom to find her and made it clear that there was nothing shady between her and Chayen, and that they were just friends. The reason Chayen acted that way was because she didn't trust him. Ji also warned Piak not to play tricks behind her back anymore, or she wouldn't let it slide next time. Ji is an international superstar with a huge fortune and beauty that everyone loves. The female lead became a target for many women. Even the director's wife was jealous of her looks and constantly tried to hurt her. But Ji isn't someone who is easy to bully. Everyone thinks Ji has the most perfect life, but nobody knows that her real life is actually quite miserable. Since she was a child, Ji had to live a hard life with her mother. After growing up, thanks to her beauty, she became a famous star, but her mother became a mistress in the eyes of the public. On the outside, Ji and her mother have a rich and classy life, but in reality her mother lives without any say in anything. To please her new husband, Ji's mother used her own money to make a gold gun for him, but he didn't even look at it and just insulted them. Even though she was treated like that, Ji's mother didn't dare to say a word back. The cruel servant saw Ji's mother's weakness and took advantage of it, forcing her to clean up the mess on the table like a maid. Ji's mother couldn't take it anymore and angrily knocked the coffee cup onto the floor. Because of this messy family, Ji didn't want to live with her mother and stepfather. Not only did the pervy stepfather treat Ji's mother poorly, but he also harassed Ji all the time. Ji had no choice but to move to her grandmother's house. Ji's mother heard about this, because she wanted to protect her status as a rich lady and didn't want people to know about her poor past. She ordered Ji to cut ties with her grandmother. Ji is a kind girl, so how could she agree to such a crazy demand? She scolded her mother for being ungrateful. But to her surprise, her mother got angry and gave her a hard slap. Ji was so frustrated that tears streamed down her face. Not only did she have conflict with her family, but since the car accident, Ji was also stalked by a man. This man seemed immune to Ji's beauty and always tried to clash with her. First, Ji thought he just wanted to mess with her, until one day while visiting an orphanage, Ji happened to find a letter in a cabinet. That's when Ji realized the girl she accidentally killed had such a beautiful love story with Sathit. Right then, Sathit walked in, and Ji quickly hid behind the door, looking at him with teary eyes. Only then did Ji realize how big her mistake truly was. Their twisted fate started from here. Today, Ji's grandmother's shop was trashed, and her younger brother was badly beaten by men in black. Hearing the bad news, Ji wore sunglasses to disguise herself and went to the scene. She tried to reason with the men in black, but they didn't hold back and were about to attack Ji. Just then, the person who hated her the most stepped in to save her like a hero. Switching scenes, this secretary is really wicked. She knew the boss was married but still had delusional dreams, ignoring her colleague's advice, wanting to use her youth to beat the wife and make the boss fall for her to climb the social ladder. Unexpectedly, a familiar pair of eyes was watching through a crack in the door. It was the boss's wife. Seeing the scene in front of her, the woman flew into a rage and barged in to teach the secretary a lesson. She grabbed her hair, pushed her head into a sink of water, and warned her to stay away from her husband. During the struggle, the secretary accidentally got away. Then she ran to the boss crying, using a pitiful face to make false accusations and smear the wife's reputation. The husband couldn't stop it. He thought his wife was just being moody and starting trouble for no reason. The boss angrily scolded her in front of everyone and sent her home. The wife felt extremely humiliated, and tears flooded her eyes. She called her brother to cry to him. To her surprise, in her distraction, she got into a car accident. On the other end, her brother heard a loud noise and was very worried. But at that moment, he was in a remote countryside helping Ji's grandmother with some trouble, and he was being blocked by Ji, his sworn enemy. To stop Sathit from becoming her grandmother's lawyer, Ji, the wealthy woman with a huge fortune, pulled out a wad of cash and gave it to him, wanting to get rid of Sathit, who she found annoying. To her surprise, Sathit was an upright and firm man. Neither money nor beauty could bribe him. Having no choice, Ji had to call Cheyenne for help. But his phone was unreachable because the director was by his side taking care of his injured wife. Luckily, the expensive Ferrari protected her. And Piak only had some minor surface injuries. Seeing how worried her husband was, the wife finally believed in his love for her. The misunderstanding was cleared. And their relationship became as sweet as before. Feeling happy, the wife went to a beauty salon to relax, but to her surprise, she ran into the model who was competing for a job with Ji. Because Ji, her colleague at the company, had fair skin, a beautiful face, long legs, and amazing acting skills. She became world famous overnight and was sought after by many brands. This really affected that model's ad contracts. She couldn't take it anymore. And the fire of jealousy inside her burned even hotter. To drive a wedge between Ji and the director and create an opportunity for herself, she went to the director's wife, wanting to use her to harm Ji by spreading fake rumors about Ji and the director's relationship. Surprisingly, after what happened, the boss's wife trusted her husband's love even more. She threw a card at the two of them and announced she was cutting ties from now on. With the plot exposed, the model was mad as hell and started planning something else. The director's wife pretended not to care on the outside, but she was actually very sensitive on the inside. Today was Ji's award ceremony. She had prepared very carefully and looked stunningly beautiful. When Ji entered the elevator, her pervy stepfather saw her. He immediately chased after her, which terrified Ji. In the chaos, she bit his ear hard. Finally, the elevator reached the 18th floor and Ji rushed out. But her stepfather wouldn't let her go and kept trying to harass her. Just then, Ji saw reporters waiting ahead, so she loudly threatened her stepfather. Ji's mother also arrived, so the three of them put on an act of being a happy, warm family. During the award presentation, Ji shined alone under the spotlight. Because she knew as long as she played the lead in this movie, her value would skyrocket. But right at that moment, a familiar figure walked in. A woman wearing fancy jewelry and sharp makeup walked straight onto the stage. Ji was confused and didn't understand what was happening. The director's wife took the microphone and suddenly announced the movie would have 2 female leads. Ji was stunned, and anger and insecurity rose inside her. Seeing Ji's struggle, that woman took advantage of it and insulted her even more. Only now did Ji realize the director's wife was behind everything. Ji felt extremely wronged. After the ceremony ended, the female lead found the director to talk. The two of them talked like close friends. Surprisingly, Sathit saw this scene. He rushed over like the wind, misunderstood that they were being intimate, and insulted Ji. The director quickly explained. But Ji suddenly grabbed the director's hand, intentionally annoying him. Sathit was so angry and thought Ji was way out of line, so he chased after her. When Sathit was about to call Ji back, Ji's mother appeared. At that moment, the male lead realized that the two of them were only mother and daughter in name. He immediately took out his phone to record their conversation. And then Sathit discovered a shocking secret. Right after finishing her interview with the media, Ji's mother immediately found her, scolding and falsely accusing her daughter of seducing her stepfather. Ji is both stubborn and fragile, and she felt extremely disappointed in her mother. In her anger, the female lead talked back to her mother, saying she did it on purpose. Hearing this, her mother got angry and gave her a hard slap like a bolt from the blue. Ji couldn't stand her mother's unfairness anymore. The female lead continued to annoy her, saying her mother was old and greedy and should just look after herself, while she would take care of her stepfather. Unexpectedly, those words spoken in anger reached the ears of Sathit, who was hiding behind them. He already had misunderstandings about Ji, and hearing this made him believe it was all true. He secretly recorded that video as evidence. Ji wanted to explain, but Sathit didn't want to listen. She angrily rushed at him to grab his phone, and suddenly the two of them locked eyes. Sathit remembered the moment Ji drove the car that killed his fiancé. Sathit angrily drove away. Returning home, Ji couldn't stop thinking about what happened. She was afraid that hateful man would leak the video online to ruin her career as revenge for his late fiancé. This made Ji very sensitive. Seeing people at the company reading the newspaper, Ji rushed over to ask, but when she looked at the paper, it was just news about her winning an award. Ji breathed a sigh of relief and focused on work. The director talked to Ji about a new script, and then took her to a fancy restaurant for a meal. Just then, Ji got a text from Sathit. She was so scared her heart skipped a beat, so she left the director and rushed to the location he sent. As soon as she arrived, Ji saw Sathit giving an envelope to a newspaper editor. She rushed to stop him, and the editor was confused, not knowing what was happening. After checking it, it turned out to be just an invitation to a dinner party. Seeing Ji's terrified face, Sathit smirked and left. Ji wasn't at ease, so she chased him to warn him not to play games. Sathit is the type of person who responds better to kindness than threats. He got even angrier and vowed to expose Ji's scandal. Ji firmly fought back, threatening to sue Sathit for invading her privacy and getting his law license revoked. Ji thought Sathit would give in, but instead, He threw the phone off an 800-meter-tall building and walked away with a smug smile. Surprisingly, Ji immediately took off her shoes and climbed out the window, holding onto the railing with one hand, trying to get the phone back to protect her secret. But because of a mistake she slipped and fell. At that critical moment, Sathit appeared just in time. He pulled Ji back and held her tight in his arms. It felt like an electric spark passed between them, but in Sathit's heart, he still held onto the image of his late lover. Even when his assistant helped him clean the house, he saw his late fiancé's shadow in her. Today while playing with the kids, Ji accidentally fell into the water, and her clothes got soaked. While she was drying her clothes, Sathit arrived. Seeing Ji's back, Sathit suddenly had a hallucination. Thinking the girl in front of him was his late fiancé, he tiptoed over. But when Ji turned around, the person standing there was Ji, his sworn enemy. Sathit angrily yelled at Ji, asking why she was wearing TIW's clothes and imitating his lover. Ji tried to explain, but Sathit wouldn't listen. He insulted her harshly and then rushed over to rip her clothes. The female lead got angry and gave Sathit a hard slap. Their relationship hit rock bottom once again. This made Ji very sad. Just then, the person who hated her the most stepped in to save her like a hero. Switching scenes. This secretary is really wicked. She knew the boss was married but still had delusional dreams, ignoring her colleague's advice. Ji's mother closed her eyes and walked into the hotel with him. At this moment he was thrilled, thinking as soon as they got in the elevator, Ji would be trapped. However, just as the elevator door was about to close, Ji's mother appeared and blocked the door to get in. The stepfather yelled angrily. The mother saw through his evil intentions. Having his true face exposed, he was speechless for a moment, and was about to slap Ji's mother when a bodyguard came over with an iPad. Seeing the news on the iPad, the stepfather angrily knocked Ji's mother to the ground. It turned out someone had secretly taken a photo of him putting Ji in the car, and leaked it. He thought Ji's mother was behind it, so he ordered his men to take Ji away and took his anger out on the mother. Failing to get what he wanted, the stepfather immediately plotted to kidnap Ji to a deserted island. Ji acted calm on the outside but was terrified on the inside. The experienced stepfather saw through Ji's thoughts and promised to give her the island, then tried to assault her. But Ji fought back hard, and the stepfather got very angry and tried to use force on her. By chance Sathit, Ji's sworn enemy, arrived there to investigate. While the bodyguards weren't paying attention, he and his assistant snuck into the garden to collect evidence but were caught by the security. Surrounded by big guys, Sathit and his assistant fought them, but there were too many enemies, and Sathit and the assistant were beaten badly. Just then Ji appeared, and the quick-witted assistant grabbed Ji as a hostage. The three of them accidentally became teammates and escaped together. The security chief chased them on a motorcycle, and the brave assistant stayed behind to block the way so Sathit and Ji could go first. Unexpectedly, Sathit's car tire blew out, and they crashed into a lake. Sathit is a good swimmer and escaped quickly, but Ji doesn't know how to swim. She struggled in the water and was about to drown. Sathit planned to leave Ji behind, but seeing her dying he risked going back to save her. By then Ji had fainted, and no matter how much Sathit tried first aid, it was useless. Having no choice, Sathit had to give Ji mouth to mouth. Their eyes met, and there seemed to be a spark of feeling, but soon after Ji fainted again. They were saved by local fishermen. When she woke up, Ji remembered everything. It turned out that when her stepfather tried to assault her, she calmly used softness to overcome hardness, pretending to comfort him and saying that to repay him, she would definitely be good and listen to him. After saying that, she gently hugged him. While the stepfather was caught up in Ji's sweetness, she took advantage of his distraction and jumped out the window to escape. With her weak body, Ji ran a 102-degree fever that night. Sathit didn't want to care whether Ji lived or died. In his mind, this woman wasn't just the person who caused the accident that killed his fiancé, but she was also a loose and ruined woman. However, seeing Ji looking so pitiful, a strange feeling rose inside Sathit, but because he is stubborn he didn't want to admit his feelings. To hide his thoughts, Sathit roughly pinched Ji's nose and forced her to take medicine. Unexpectedly, Ji was even more stubborn. She intentionally threw up all the medicine, saying Sathit didn't need to care about her, and to just consider it her way of paying for her sins toward his fiancé. At this point, Sathit realized he couldn't be cruel to Ji anymore, so he made an excuse, saying he didn't want to bother the locals, which is why he was taking care of her. Hearing that, Ji felt relieved. Watching Sathit gently wipe her down, Ji realized he wasn't as cold as he looked. However, early the next morning, the stepfather's bodyguards found them. Sathit lured them to the beach, and just as a bullet was about to be fired, Ji suddenly ran out and used her body to shield Sathit. At that moment the locals also arrived, and Sathit took the chance to escape with Ji on a motorboat. But as soon as they reached the shore, Sathit wanted to cut ties with Ji. Ji thought Sathit hated her, so she walked away crying. Ji was injured and couldn't survive on her own, so she ran away in fear. Surprisingly, Sathit was still there and hadn't left. He agreed to let G follow him. G was happy and about to walk over, but her wound caused her pain. Seeing how pitiful G looked, Sathit took off his expensive shirt to bandage her wound. The atmosphere between them became very awkward, but they had something more important to do. Cross the stormy sea. Sathit planned to swim across with G, but G didn't know how to swim. Seeing this, he told G to hold onto him tight and treat him like a floaty. So, the two of them quickly crossed the sea. G was exhausted and fell asleep. When she woke up, Sathit was gone. Looking closely, she saw he was sleepwalking straight toward the deep sea. G screamed in fear for Sathit to stop, but Sathit was like a lost soul and heard nothing. G had to rush over and hug Sathit, pulling him back. It turned out this sea was the place where Sathit and his fiancé had made a promise. Exhausted, Sathit saw a hallucination. He thought his fiancé was calling him, but it was all just an illusion. Sathit collapsed in pain. Only then did G realize how huge her mistake was, and she began to take care of him devotedly. G helped Sathit to the shore to rest, and he ended up falling into her lap. Just like that, the two of them leaned on each other and slept until morning. After returning, G continued her acting work. To get a role in a high-paying movie, G risked her life by jumping into freezing water. This action didn't just earn her praise from the director, but it also made many people jealous. G's rival co-star secretly cut her safety rope before filming. In front of everyone, she kept hitting G. The director's wife watched this and felt smug. When the schemer pretended to fall, everyone rushed over to check on her. The director's wife took the chance to send everyone away. Just then, the rope holding G broke, and since G couldn't swim, she fell into the deep pond. Seeing G about to drown, the director's wife only then pretended to yell for people to come save her. G was dunked in the water unfairly, but this woman still wouldn't let her go and even gave her a towel. Surprisingly, there were razor blades hidden in the towel. G couldn't take it anymore. She had to stop filming and go back to the hotel to rest. Knowing G was safe, the schemer was so angry she was fuming. The assistant wanted to please her boss, so she took it upon herself to swap the room keys of the director and G. The director had no idea and walked into the room, taking off his shirt to show his toned six-pack. Unexpectedly, G just finished showering and walked out of the bathroom. The two of them locked eyes, and the air became very awkward. G's female intuition told her that someone must have set this up. She was about to push the director out when she was hit by a sudden hard slap. The director's wife grabbed G's hair and insulted her harshly. Seeing this, the director quickly hugged his wife, who was in a blind rage. Provoked, G raised her hand and slapped the director's wife back. Piak yelled in anger that she would tell her father to fire G and ruin her career. Hearing that, the two people watching the drama behind them jumped for joy. Back in the room, the director's wife was blindly jealous, wouldn't listen to any explanation, and even slapped her husband. The director was heartbroken and didn't want to explain anymore, so he turned and walked away. At this time, Piak panicked and called her brother. Sathit went to G's apartment. At that moment, G was trying on an outfit for her new movie. She was holding a bra in front of the mirror to compare, then asked her best friend to take a look. This scene made Sathit hesitate, but because he wanted to keep his promise to his sister, Sathit ignored G's explanation and barged into the bedroom to catch her cheating. G ran to stop him and by accident, the two of them locked eyes. G backed away in shock but was held tight by Sathit. On this side, to get revenge on the female lead who always suppressed her, the schemer secretly got into the stepfather's car. She acted pitiful to win his trust. Surprisingly, that old man was a creep, and he immediately started harassing her. The old man found out this schemer was accused of leaking company secrets. Knowing that the other side found a good lawyer and an important witness, he ordered someone to crash into the witness and kill them, making it look like an accident. Seeing his friend sacrifice himself for him, Sathit, the honest lawyer, broke into the crime scene alone to collect evidence. But he was discovered by the man's people. The hitman set a fire, wanting to burn Sathit and the secretary Phi, along with the evidence. Luckily, Sathit is a huge fan of Conan, and his IQ is over 800. He took the secretary and climbed over the wall to escape. Knowing the man was that evil, Sathit was determined to get revenge for his friend. He disguised himself and broke into the man's company to fight him to the death, but G showed up just in time to stop him. Their argument was heard by the bodyguards. They realized Sathit was still alive and immediately chased them. G and Sathit were almost hit by a truck. At that moment, Sathit quickly pulled G into the back of the truck. The two held their breath, hoping the bodyguards wouldn't find them. Suddenly, a hand touched the lock of the truck bed. It turned out to be the truck driver who had just come back. So the two were driven to a remote village. Sathit anxiously called for help, but the driver had no idea. At this time, G discovered she had been shot, but she hid the pain and said nothing. Sathit saw G trembling, so he took off his jacket and put it over her. This action made G very moved. When they reached the village, The two had to find a place to stay temporarily. After everything that happened, Sathit started to miss G. He secretly went to her door to peek. Just then, G opened a voice message from her mother, which started with a string of insults. Hearing this, Sathit finally understood that the person who had been secretly protecting him all this time was G. But G had never mentioned it. At this time, G's wound started to ache. She went into the bathroom, and suddenly there was a thud sound. Sathit rushed over and banged on the door to ask what happened, but there was no answer from inside. Worried, Sathit kicked the door open and saw G had fainted. He quickly picked her up and found a gunshot wound on her arm. Sathit completely broke down. G woke up after surgery, and her gunshot wound was much better. But she received terrible news. Her grandmother had passed away. She didn't even get to see her one last time. G collapsed in pain. Seeing G looking so pitiful, Sathit couldn't help but feel compassion. He hugged her tight. After her grandmother died, G's spirit was crushed. Sathit wanted to comfort G but told himself to stay sharp because G was the enemy who killed his fiancé. He could only watch over her silently. At the funeral, G looked toward the door many times but didn't see Sathit anywhere. After the funeral ended, she walked down the street feeling lost. Because she was so beautiful. G was teased by a group of young punks. G was about to run when Sathit suddenly pulled her into the bushes. They locked eyes and Sathit seemed to drown in G's gentle gaze. They hugged each other tightly, and Sathit kept comforting her. That afternoon the two were talking by the sea. Suddenly, two thugs on a motorcycle rushed up, and the one on the back pulled out a gun and aimed it straight at G and Sathit. Luckily, her younger brother saw it and rushed over to use his body to shield G. Knowing the assassination plan failed, the stepfather was so angry his blood pressure skyrocketed. G and Sathit were terrified and quickly called the police for protection. As an honest lawyer, after taking G to the hospital, Sathit drove off to look for evidence. Watching Sathit leave, G stood restlessly waiting in front of the operating room. At this time, the police received a tip from a witness saying the gun was aimed at Sathit. Hearing this, G understood that the person pulling the strings was her stepfather, because in this world only he hated Sathit to the bone. At this moment, the stepfather was in his office discussing the next plan with the hitman. Unexpectedly, G's mother overheard them. Afraid he would hurt her daughter, she quickly called G to warn her to be careful. G became even more certain the mastermind was her stepfather. The female lead quickly called the police to protect Sathit, while she went to find him alone. Seeing the bloodstains on the ground, G burst into tears. She thought Sathit was gone, but when she turned around and saw that he was still alive, feeling both happy and angry, G punched him repeatedly on his chest. Sathit asked in surprise if G was crying because she was worried about him. G felt shy and quickly stopped. Just then, a motorcycle rushed up. Looking closely, they realized it was the assassin from the afternoon. To hide from the stepfather's pursuit, G and Sathit held their breath and hid behind a car. At that critical moment, G accidentally made a noise, which caused the assassin to find them. They panicked and quickly rushed into the bushes to avoid being caught. G covered her mouth and lay on top of Sathit. Luckily, the wall nearby blocked them and helped them survive, but Sathit was tormented by G to the point of near death. They had to find the teacher's house to rest. That night, Sathit suddenly wanted to eat hot pot. He went into the kitchen and found only simple pots and pans. Sathit was clumsy and accidentally dropped a pot on the floor. The loud noise startled G while she was sleeping. She thought the stepfather's assassins had arrived, so she rushed out to check, but when she got there, she only saw pots and pans scattered on the floor. Then the lights in the room suddenly went out. G was going to turn on the lights and accidentally bumped into Sathit's chest. He felt embarrassed and pretended to be asleep without saying a word. Back in the room, G's heart raced and her face turned red. She planned to sleep in, but the director's wife misunderstood the relationship between her and the director again. G, being heroic, immediately drove to the director's house. Surprisingly, she saw that the director's wife had kicked him out and called a bunch of young guys to entertain her. G was angry and threw a pitcher of water right in the wife's face. The woman was furious and was about to slap G. Unexpectedly, she was thrown into the pool by G. Only then did Piak calm down. G took this chance to explain everything clearly, insisting that she and the director were only friends. Now the director's wife realized G was not someone to be bullied. She put on fancy makeup and went to G's house to apologize. However, last night the drunk director had gone to G's house to talk. G and her best friend had to let him stay. Just as the director woke up and was about to leave, his wife showed up. The blindly jealous wife rushed in and beat her husband repeatedly. G reached the door and realized she forgot her phone, so she went back. Seeing G return, the wife thought she was being tricked and started fighting with her. The husband couldn't take it anymore and pushed his wife to the ground. Piak thought her husband had a change of heart. She went home and threw all his clothes out, planning to set them on fire. Luckily, Sathit appeared in time to stop her. The sister ignored everything and told her brother the whole story, looking for comfort. But Sathit just poured a glass of water on her head. Seeing his sister calm down, Sathit explained right and wrong to her, but the smart sister noticed something was different about him. She asked Sathit straight up if he loved G. Sathit avoided her eyes and made an excuse to leave. Seeing the injury, Sathit painfully and gently rubbed G. G didn't care and tried to leave, but Sathit held her hand tightly. This scene was caught by the sister standing upstairs. She wanted to fight till the end, but she couldn't outfight or outcurse them. So she faked a suicide attempt to get attention. She wanted to get her husband and G's attention, and she also hired people to spread fake rumors about the female lead, saying she seduced someone else's husband. She even bribed the media to surround G. The female lead was angry at the media's lies. Unexpectedly, someone in the crowd threw rotten eggs at her. Right then, the younger brother rushed over to shield G and announced to the media that he was her boyfriend. Hearing this, the best friend who secretly loved the brother suffered alone to let them be together. She decided to leave. G had no idea about this. After everything ended, she gently bandaged her younger brother's wound. Looking into G's big round eyes, the brother couldn't hold back anymore and confessed his feelings to her. The brother gently held G's hand. Sathit saw this scene and left in jealous anger. Returning home, G found out her best friend had gone to Antarctica. She called her friend in pain but couldn't reach her, and the female lead also missed the last flight there. Desperate, G couldn't help but call Sathit. As soon as the call connected, Sathit appeared right behind her. Now G couldn't control her feelings anymore. She ran to hug him. Their feelings grew deeper. Sathit gallantly opened the car door for G and drove her home. But right after Sathit left, G's mother came to scold her, demanding she stay away from Sathit without giving a clear reason. It turned out the stepfather knew G and Sathit were working together. He took his anger out on G's mother, and even openly brought a young beautiful model home. When G's mother found out, she started a fight. But the stepfather was only interested in the model, and pushed the mother to the ground. Not only that, during dinner he didn't let G's mother eat with them, letting the model and the servants insult her. G's mother angrily went to find G. But the stubborn daughter didn't understand and said she wanted to fight the stepfather to the end. The stepfather guessed G would do that. As soon as they found evidence to report him, he had someone break into the law office and steal all his documents. Sathit was extremely angry. Just then, the stepfather went to the law office himself to provoke Sathit. Hearing that, Sathit punched him. But G's stepfather threw a folder at him, saying it had proof that G was the one who caused the accident that killed his fiancé. On this side, G's mother couldn't convince her daughter and didn't want her to suffer from love, so she went to Sathit's office and met him on the rooftop. Then she threw a check at him, demanding he leave her daughter alone. But Sathit has high self-esteem. He tore up the check and warned G's mother, saying she was hiding the truth that her daughter killed his fiancé. He also said he wouldn't forgive G and would make her pay for her mistake. G heard the whole conversation on the other end of the phone. She burst into tears in pain. She believed her mother and thought Sathit was like other men, only approaching her for her looks. G was so angry she couldn't control herself, so she went to Sathit's house to test his limit. The female lead desperately asked Sathit what he wanted her to do so he would let her go. Sathit stubbornly thought G was just pretending. He said something cruel. "Did you come here because of my deal with your mother this morning? If I sleep with you, will you let everything end? What if I say yes? Then I will sleep with you." G was completely hopeless. She unzipped her dress. Sathit told her to stop, but G firmly moved toward him. He backed away in shock, but under G's provocation, they fell for each other. Early the next morning, Sathit woke up and regretted his actions. Sathit wanted to comfort G, but when he saw his fiancé's photo, his conscience reminded him he wasn't allowed to have feelings for G. Sathit had to walk out, but remembering his rude behavior last night, he felt regretful. As for G, she waited but Sathit never came to comfort her. The female lead cried in pain, then packed her things and left. Seeing G so weak, Sathit was heartbroken, but to hide his feelings he acted cold. He threw the folder at her, saying he wanted to break up with her. But as G left, Sathit picked up the lipstick she dropped and held it tightly. G went home, walked into the shower exhausted, and her tears mixed with the flowing water. As for Sathit, he also felt guilty and regretted hurting a girl who truly loved him. To forget the sadness quickly, G buried herself in work, taking on many movies and ads. The superstar and the director kept meeting and were caught up in dating rumors. Sathit was angry for his sister. He couldn't control his jealousy and beat the director up. Sathit tried to hold back his feelings, but when he got home, G's beautiful image appeared in his mind. Sathit remembered the lipstick G left that day, so he secretly went to her house. Unexpectedly, the door code was G's perfect body measurements. Sathit easily broke into her house. To hide how much he missed her, Sathit made an excuse that he was returning her things, then even insulted G. The female lead saw Sathit was being too much, so she threw a pillow at him, then a vase. In her anger, she threw the remote control, hitting his forehead. Seeing the wound on Sathit's forehead, G was heartbroken. She didn't understand why Sathit treated her like that. He thought the rumors between G and the director were true, so he pinned G against the wall in jealousy. The atmosphere between them became hazy. Unable to control himself, he tried to kiss her. G avoided the kiss and suddenly ran away, but she stepped on a piece of the broken vase. G was in pain and almost cried. Only then did Sathit stop pretending to be cold. He gently massaged G's wound. The female lead also dropped her pride and put her hand on his cheek. Sathit took her hand and put it on his chest. Under each other's hot gaze, they couldn't hold back anymore and shared a passionate kiss. Just then, the director came to G's house to take care of her. Seeing Sathit's car, he thought Sathit was causing trouble again, so he rushed in and beat Sathit up, forcing him to kneel and apologize to G. But now G was lost in love. She begged the director to stop and then kicked him out. But when Sathit opened the door, Piak also appeared. Seeing her brother covered in injuries and then her husband at G's house late at night, the wife misunderstood the friendship between G and the director. She left in pain, even hiding the fact that she was pregnant. Their love was considered broken. Unexpectedly, early the next morning, the stepfather found out the director and Sathit fought over G. After being rejected by G, he was so full of hate that he wanted revenge on G and Sathit. He intentionally made an appointment with Sathit in the outskirts, lying that he wanted to confess. Sathit was gullible and went to the meeting place alone. To his surprise, the stepfather wanted to kill Sathit. Being double-crossed, Sathit was seriously injured. G couldn't sit still in front of the emergency room door. Finally, the surgeon came out but announced that Sathit might be paralyzed from the waist down. G was so devastated she almost fainted. Right then, Sathit's sister saw the news and rushed to the hospital, yelling at G. G felt ashamed and promised everyone that she would give Sathit an explanation. After saying that, she called her mother, demanding that she and the stepfather go turn themselves in. But before she could finish her sentence, she was kidnapped by the stepfather's men. They took G to his bedroom. Seeing the beautiful and sexy star, the pervy stepfather got turned on again, but G fought back hard. After a struggle, he got angry and pushed G onto a table. G stood up bravely, broke a vase and walked toward him. He was terrified and kept backing away. Just then, G's mother showed up just in time. She was worried about her daughter and accidentally killed a servant. Seeing this, G screamed for her mother to run, but her mother had already lost her cool. Seeing the stepfather pointing a gun at her daughter, she fired and shot him, with blood staining the bedsheets. To keep G out of trouble, her mother pretended to be angry and said she was disowning her. Only then did G understand her mother's heart. She hugged her mother tight and wouldn't let go. The mother stopped hiding her feelings too. She held her daughter tight and sobbed. The next day, the police came to take G's mother to the station for investigation. G didn't want her mother to suffer because of her. She wanted to appeal, but her mother refused. If she appealed, her past as a sex worker would be exposed, which would ruin G's career. With her mother arrested and her lover paralyzed, G felt like she was collapsing under life's problems. To get over the pain quickly, she buried herself in work, taking on many TV shows and ads. But while performing her signature dance, G suddenly fainted. The director quickly took her to the hospital. After getting in for, G woke up but the doctor told her she was pregnant. When the director went back to the car to get G's things, he accidentally saw a pregnancy test in her bag. The director understood everything. To protect G's reputation, he quietly paid her medical bills. Unexpectedly, his wife was also at the hospital for an ultrasound. She overheard this and misunderstood that the baby was her husband's. Because she was so heartbroken, Piak immediately divorced her husband and ran to Sathit, crying her eyes out. This news hit Sathit like a bolt of lightning. He was speechless. He remembered what just happened. Sathit had just recovered and was walking on crutches to comfort G. But when he stood up, he saw the director had gotten there first. The two of them were even hugging intimately. Sathit believed even more in the weird relationship between the two. Hurting and jealous, he had to accept the secretary's feelings, letting her take care of him and be close. With the stepfather dead and her mother in prison, G naturally inherited a huge fortune. However, she decided to give a piece of land worth billions to the mother of the girl from the accident. Surprisingly, TIW's mother didn't just refuse it, she wanted to adopt G as her daughter. That night, Sathit lay in bed with G's beautiful face in his mind. But when he remembered his sister saying G was pregnant with the director's baby, he felt angry inside. The next day, Sathit went to his mother-in-law's house and happened to see G there. But the director was playing with G and the kids. He saw this scene. The director put his arm around G's shoulder, making Sathit even more jealous, and he left in anger. The secretary took the chance to grab Sathit's arm, making G and Sathit misunderstand each other. After dinner, Sathit still couldn't relax. He walked along the river alone and ran into G. Sathit quietly hid behind a tree. G picked up a fallen petal to smell it and suddenly started gagging. Sathit rushed over in worry. He planned to help G up and make up with her, but G pushed his hand away, saying from now on they owed each other nothing. Then she hid her pregnancy and walked away. The next day, G brought cake to her foster mother, who wanted G to stay and eat with Sathit, but things weren't like they used to be. G rushed out and bumped into him. They quickly let go but kept bumping into each other. Sathit gallantly made way for G but tried to hold her hand. When G stopped, Sathit acted cold and said some harsh words, asking her not to come here anymore because if she did, he couldn't forget the past. G had no choice. Since the father of the baby told her to cut ties, she agreed to his request. Sathit couldn't control himself. Seeing G secretly eating lotus seeds, he quietly went to buy some for her. He planned to give the flowers to G secretly but saw her and the director being intimate. Sathit was jealous and misunderstood their relationship again. On this side, the director's wife also misunderstood their friendship. She immediately divorced the director, hid her pregnancy, and left for a faraway place. The father-in-law saw his son-in-law looking miserable and rushed to tell him his wife was pregnant. Hearing this, the director was shocked. He realized he had made a big mistake. Chayan kept calling his wife but she kept hanging up. He had to call the driver and tell him to lie to her that the car was broken. However, the ex-wife didn't want to wait anymore and called a taxi. Just then the director appeared, kicked the taxi driver out, and drove his ex-wife himself. Seeing that familiar and hateful face, the wife wanted to get out. To make her stay, the director had to explain clearly about G's pregnancy, and they realized it was all a misunderstanding. The two happily hugged and made up. G decided to retire from acting, even turning down future opportunities because she wanted to have the baby and raise Sathit's child alone. To finish her last job, G risked riding a horse for a photo shoot. Unexpectedly, the 3-month pregnant G was spotted by a scheming woman. To ruin G, the schemer intentionally touched the horse. It got spooked and jumped up, making G fall and pass out. Seeing a rose petal fall on G's photo, Sathit suddenly got worried. His sister called him right then to tell him G was pregnant with his baby. Sathit was both happy and worried and rushed to the hospital. G's manager was surrounded by reporters. Seeing the director and his wife walking in hand, the media got even crazier, asking if the director and G were dating. The director's wife explained, but the media wouldn't let it go. They kept surrounding G in her hospital room. Just then, Sathit appeared. He used his body to shield G and announced to the media, "If anyone takes a photo without permission, I will sue. You can only post that G didn't steal anyone's husband because I am her husband." But after going into the room, G angrily kicked him out, saying they had nothing to do with each other. G didn't want him by her side just because of the baby, and she didn't want the baby to know it was born because he forced himself on her. But Sathit didn't give up because of his love for her. The male lead decided to be thick-skinned. He just needed her to give him a chance. The next day he bought baby's breath, G's favorite flower, but found out she had left. Not giving up, Sathit went to G's house but it was empty. After he poured his heart out, G's friend softened and gave him G's passport. Sathit rushed to the airport, but G's car broke down on the way, and he missed the flight. Sathit felt terrible. He remembered G's words. "I hope this is the last storm of our lives. I hope you have a good life, a peaceful and happy one like you had before you met me. Forgive me, okay?" Sathit remembered every word of the woman he loved. His heart ached, and he cried tears of love and regret. He sent G many messages expressing his feelings. "Can we leave the past behind? After everything, I realize I can't live without you. In this life, I don't need anything but you. Please don't leave me again." G heard his words and both cried and felt happy, but he still got no reply. Having no choice, Sathit had to ask G's mother for help to reconnect. She told Sathit G's address. It turned out after the car broke down, G was saved by a kind couple. To repay them, G helped them make clay crafts. Today G was taking the artwork to school. As soon as she walked out the door, she met Sathit, who had traveled a long way to find her. G panicked and ran away. Sathit chased her and hugged his lover tight, apologizing, but G didn't believe in his love. She had to call her best friend to complain. Little did she know, the sneaky Sathit was standing behind her, eavesdropping on the whole conversation. He grabbed G's phone and pinned her down on the bed. Not backing down against Sathit, she struggled hard to get the phone back. This scene was caught by the landlady passing by. Misunderstood, G stood there awkwardly. That night, G intentionally locked the door to keep Sathit out of the room. Sathit shouted for help to get the owner's attention, and while G wasn't looking, he snuck into the room. G coldly told him to sleep on the floor, and Sathit didn't dare argue, so he did it. But to win G over, He purposely asked about her and even touched her chin, asking, "Did you have plastic surgery?" Waking up early the next morning, he secretly looked at G. The female lead pulled back in surprise and turned her face away. But she was secretly happy inside. To win G's heart, Sathit lay on top of her and kissed her belly. Then he took the initiative to dry her hair, brushed teeth with her, and kept asking if she wanted to get married. The two of them were once again lost in sweetness. G said, "In my life I've never gotten anything without losing something else. You are the best thing God has given me." After being comforted, sharing their thoughts and being enlightened by Sathit, they both hugged each other happily. Sathit asked G when she fell in love with him, but G refused to answer. Sathit chuckled. "Not answering means you've had a crush on me for a long time." G ignored Sathit and ran ahead. "When I fell in love with you doesn't matter. What matters is that I love you. Right?" The two of them played by the beach. Sathit once again proposed to G seriously. "The law can force many things, but when it comes to the heart, I can't use the law to force you to marry me, but I will use my heart and my love to bring you happiness. Can you marry this mean man who loves only you?" G nodded in agreement while both crying and laughing. She gave him a passionate kiss. So after so many ups and downs in life, their love was finally big enough for them to overcome every obstacle and be together. The movie ends here. I thank you all for watching until the very last moment. If you liked it, please give me a like and remember to hit follow to keep up with me. Bye bye and see you all again.